We have been learning a lot about insects. We have learned that all insects have three main body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. All insects have antennae, an exoskeleton, and 6 legs, and some insects have wings. Today, we are going to learn about the largest group of insects on Earth. These insects in this image are all different types of beetles. Our read aloud today is called Armored Tanks of the Insect World. This is a picture of an armored tank that is used in lots of militaries. Take a minute to think about how the beetles in the picture you just saw are similar to this armored tank. As always, before we begin our story, we are going to go over some of the new vocabulary words that you will hear. The first of these words is mimicry. Mimicry is when a plant or animal mimics or looks like another plant or animal, often so that it can protect itself from a predator. In today's read aloud, we are going to learn about an insect called a wasp beetle. A wasp beetle's mimicry of a wasp protects it from predators who fear that, like a wasp, it will sting them. Take a minute to think. If you were able to create an insect that used mimicry to protect itself from predators, what animal or plant do you think you would want your insect to mimic or copy? If you have time after this lesson, draw a picture of your insect and write a short sentence that explains how your insect uses mimicry to protect itself. Adapt. To adapt means to change in order to survive in new conditions. For example, animals in the Arctic grow thick, warm fur to adapt to the cold winter temperatures. Humans often find ways to adapt to cold winter temperatures also. Take a minute to think of some ways that you adapt to survive in the winter. Armor. Armor is a protective layer or a shell. For example, a turtle's protective shell provides heavy armor against its predators. Beetles. Beetles are a type of insect with tough outer coverings and hard forewings. My grasshopper friend tells me that he asked you to guess the largest group of insects on Earth. Did anyone guess flies? Perhaps you guessed ants. Both ants and flies are good guesses. You may notice flies and ants more often than you do the enormous group of insects to which I belong. Do you remember seeing a picture of me in the first lesson about insects? Who remembers my name? Yes, I am a ladybug. But did you know that ladybugs are beetles? Fireflies are beetles too. Beetles make up about 2/3 of all insects on our planet. There are over 400,000 kinds of beetles. By the end of today, you will know a lot about these amazingly diverse insects. Diverse means that they have lots of different things. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. Beetles include fireflies, weevils, whirligigs, and rhinoceros beetles. You already know what makes an insect an insect. Remember, all insects have a head, thorax, abdomen, antennae, 6 legs, a hard exoskeleton, and many have wings. So what makes a beetle a beetle? First of all, because beetles are insects, we share the same characteristics as all insects. We have a head, we have a thorax, we have an abdomen. We have antennae, we have 6 legs, we have a hard exoskeleton, and wings. Most beetles undergo a complete metamorphosis. Remember, a complete metamorphosis is a change so big that it looks completely different than it did before it started the metamorphosis when it's done. What else do all beetles have in common? Beetles stand out in the insect world because of our heavy armor, or protective covering. In addition to our exoskeletons, our wings provide protection. Most beetles have 2 pairs of wings, but our front wings are not really wings at all. These thick, hard protective coverings are called elytra. When we're resting, we tuck our delicate back wings under our elytra, or front wings, so that you cannot see them at all. Then, when we are ready to fly, we unlock our elytra and unfold our long, thin back wings. Our elytra provide lift like the wings of an airplane, but they remain quite still as our back wings beat up and down in flight. Scientists believe one reason insects have survived or continue to live in such huge numbers on Earth is because many of us can fly. But beetles are not the fastest flyers in the insect world. In fact, some ground beetles do not fly at all. Surely one big reason for our survival is the hard outer wing cases that set us apart from other insects. Being tough, we're able to burrow down under stones and logs into very narrow places where we remain hidden, protected from predators, or animals that hunt and eat other animals. It's hard to crush or bite a beetle. We clever beetles have many means of protection. For instance, look at the bombardier beetle. This ground-living beetle produces chemicals in its abdomen. When attacked by a predator, the chemicals combine to form a bad-smelling, boiling liquid. The bombardier beetle makes a loud popping noise as it sprays its enemies with the chemicals, sometimes burning other insects or even people. Mimicry, or animal lookalikes, is another way beetles protect themselves. Look at this beetle. What does it look like? This is called a wasp beetle because its long yellow and black body mimics, or copies, that of a wasp. How do you think this keeps predators away from the wasp beetle? Of course, its predators are afraid of being stung. Another reason for the large numbers of beetles is the fact that different species adapt or change over very long periods of time to suit their environments. In this case, a long period of time could be hundreds and thousands and millions of years. Beetles live in some of the most difficult places to live on Earth, some surviving in the intense heat of the desert, and others in underwater habitats, where they have to develop ways of breathing underwater. Many desert beetles are wingless and live beneath the sand where it is cooler and less dry. Some, like these Namibian desert beetles, have stilt-like legs, allowing them to rise above the hot sand. Still others have developed arched elytra, creating tiny air pockets to help protect them from the heat. Remember, elytra are the thick, hard, protective front wing covers. Because insects need air to live, water beetles must come to the surface to get the oxygen they need to breathe. Some water beetles, like this diving beetle on the left, have developed a trick of carrying oxygen bubbles underwater, trapped just beneath their elytra. This whirligig beetle, on the right, solves the oxygen problem by staying mostly on the surface of ponds and streams, using its paddle-shaped legs to spin and turn. Its eyes, divided into 2 parts, can see above and below the surface of the water at the same time. Beetles have adapted over the years to eating a variety of plant and animal foods. With their strong chewing mouthparts, nearly every possible food source is used by some kind of beetle. Weevils, like this boll weevil, are thought to be some of the peskiest of all beetles. Their long snouts enable them to bore down into the seed pods of plants, called bolls. Boll weevils have destroyed many fields of cotton, laying eggs in the holes that they make. When the eggs hatch, the larvae eat the plants from the inside out. Some beetles feed on grains and seeds. Others chomp on apples, cherries, and other fruits. Still others live on wood and decaying plant life. Carrion beetles and their larvae feed on dead animals. Dung beetles are named for the food that they eat. Dung is manure, the solid waste of animals. Dung is very rich in nutrients and an ideal food for young dung beetles. Adult dung beetles compete to get some of the dung. They roll the dung into balls and push them away from the other beetles. They bury the balls in the ground and lay eggs in them. When the eggs hatch, the larvae feed on the dung. Tiger beetles are fierce predators, chasing down almost any prey they can find, including other insects. Prey is the animal that is hunted and eaten. Remember, a predator is the animal that eats the prey. Their fast legs and strong jaws make their job easy. Tiger beetles are the fastest runners in the insect world. Even the larvae of tiger beetles are predators who eat other insects. The larvae hide in burrows, popping partway out and snatching passing insects with their jaws. This stag beetle, with horns like antlers of a stag or male deer, looks rather fierce, but it is among the most harmless of all insects and eats mostly tree sap and other liquids. Its horns are actually its jaws. Male stag beetles use these jaws to wrestle with each other for females. Horned beetles, like this rhinoceros beetle, include some of the largest beetles in the world. Some of these beetles are also called Hercules beetles due to their great strength. Take a minute to remember what we learned about Hercules when we were talking about Greek myths. If these beetles are very strong, why do you think Hercules is a good name for them? The males use their horns to drive other males away from a female when it is time to mate. Many of them live in hot, wet, tropical areas. One of the largest and heaviest of all insects is the male Goliath beetle of Africa. Goliaths can grow to be more than 5 inches long and weigh about as much as 2 golf balls. Their heavy bodies make them poor flyers, but they are able to climb trees with ease, using their strong legs and good claws. Aren't we beetles amazing? All insects, from those with eardrums on their abdomens, to those that make their own honey, to those that glow in the dark, are truly amazing. Many insects are so small, you may forget they are living all around you, in the trees, underground, even in your houses. It's true that some insects can become a real nuisance, but many insects, like me, are extremely helpful. Next time, you will learn how important insects are to your everyday lives.
Hello, my friends. I have some questions about our read aloud today. Today we learned about the armored insects of the insect world, beetles. According to the author of our read aloud, what is one big reason that beetles have survived for so long and that they are so numerous, or that there's so many of them? What did our author say? What's the reason? Because of their exoskeletons. Beetles have really tough, hard exoskeletons. That's why we call them the armored tanks of the insect world. Those exoskeletons protect them and keep them safe. How else do beetles protect themselves? We talked about the exoskeletons that keep them from being crushed and keep them safe. But what are some other things that beetles do to keep themselves safe? There's a couple different things. They burrow into the ground. Some of them will use mimicry. Some of them have horns that help protect them. And some of the foods that they eat help protect them too. We talked about a special type of beetle today. We talked about dung beetles. What do dung beetles do with all of the dung that they collect? Once they have the dung collected, they will lay their eggs in it so that their babies and their eggs will have food ready for them as soon as they hatch. All right, my friends, for our last question today, I want you to turn to whoever is helping you and talk about this one with them. I want to know which of the beetles that we learned about today is your favorite. Which one is your favorite? And see if you can tell whoever is helping you today one fact about that type of beetle. All right, my friends. When you are ready, go ahead and open up the PDF that's attached to this assignment. I'm going to jump over to my computer so I can show you what to do.
All right, we have been working on a narrative written from the point of view of an insect. We made a plan already for what our narrative was going to include, and in our last lesson, we took that plan and we turned it into a draft. I wrote a draft about Beatrice the forager bee. The next step in our writing process is to edit, or to make our writing stronger and fix any errors in our writing. You will need your draft from our last lesson. If you didn't save a copy or print that, let your teacher know. They will be able to send you the draft that you turned in back to you. But you will need that for today's assignment. The PDF that is attached to today's assignment should look like this. This PDF has an editing checklist. Our job today is going to be to go through this checklist and make sure that our draft includes all of the items on the checklist. This very first one is punctuation. This wants you to check to make sure each sentence in your draft has some kind of final mark, a period, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. So you'll want to go through your draft and double check and make sure every single sentence has an ending mark. I can see one right here that is missing a period at the end. I'm actually going to have you, as you're fixing those, I forgot to change my color. I want you to do it in a different color. I'm going to choose purple. You can choose whatever color you would like, but we would like you to do this in a different color so we can see the changes that you are making and how you're improving your writing. After you have checked and made sure that all of your sentences have a final mark in your draft, we can go ahead and we can check that box off. Our next one wants you to look at capitalization. Remember, we capitalize the beginning of our sentences and any proper nouns or specific names for people, places, or things. I'm going to quickly double check and make sure that my beginnings of my sentences are all capitalized. Remember, when we say I is always capitalized as well, even when it's not at the beginning of the sentence. All right, my friends, it looks like I have got all of my sentences capitalized. If you are missing some, that's totally fine. Just go back and make sure you fix them, change them in a different color, and then mark this off when you're sure you've got all of the capitalization that you need in your draft. Our next one is about the main character of our story. We want to make sure that our story has a main character that we've introduced. You should have introduced your main character in this very first box. So I'm going to check this first box and see if I have introduced my character and my setting. All right, let's see. Mine says, my name is Beatrice the bee. I am a forager bee, and today I am at a beautiful park searching for sweet nectar to bring back to my hive. All right, I have got my main character introduced and my setting too. This next one is about the plot of your narrative, or what happens in your narrative. We want to make sure we have a beginning of the story, a middle of the story, and an ending to the story. Those should be found in your next 3 boxes: beginning, middle, and end. Reread those middle 3 boxes and make sure that you have explained what happens at the beginning, what happens in the middle, and what happens at the end of your story. When you're sure you have all of the necessary information, go ahead and add a check mark there. The next one is about adding details to your story. We have been talking a lot lately about adjectives and a little bit about adverbs too. Adjectives and adverbs are one way that we can add detail to our story. They make our writing more descriptive and lets our audience have a clearer picture of what we're imagining. For this one, I want you to go back through your writing and see if there is anything that you could add more adjectives or adverbs to, or more detail in general to make it more clear. I've got a couple adjectives and adverbs I used: a long flight, a big, beautiful yellow lily. I didn't just say flower, I said what kind of flower, and I used lots of describing words. I said the nectar was excellent. But there is always more that you can add. See if there is any more detail you can add. Again, you're going to make those changes or make those additions in a different color so we can see the changes that you're making. And our very last one is about our sentence structure. I want you to go back for this last one and make sure that each of your sentences are complete and that they make sense. Remember, a complete sentence has a subject and a predicate. The subject explains who or what the sentence is about, and the predicate includes the verb and any other parts of the sentence. Make sure you have both a subject and a predicate, and that you have any other information in your sentence so that it makes sense and is complete. When you are sure that all of your sentences are complete and make sense, go ahead and add a check mark to that last one. For this assignment, I want you to turn in not just this checklist page, but I also want you to turn in your draft with all of the changes that you made to it. So you've got 2 things to turn in today: the checklist page and your draft with all of the changes that you made as you went through the checklist. When you have turned in both of those things, you are all finished with knowledge for today, my friends.